Hello everybody, my name is Myah Rose and you are listening to another episode of Thorn and Thistle, the podcast where we navigate life's thorny moments related to identity, music, culture, and the pursuit of joy. Welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. I am so happy to have you join me on this marvelous day. I hope you are somewhere comfortable and that you're ready to delve deep into today's topic. Today's topic is the girls' room. We're talking about female friendships today. What that means, sisterhood, womanhood, womanism a little bit. We're also talking about toxic relationships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships, and all of that. You want to get into this, I've invited 5 of my most respected friends from undergrad and from this graduate period of my life to talk with me about friendship and our friendship and just sisters and womanhood in general. I want a disclaimer that predominantly my friends are all of my friends really are cisgendered women, and this conversation is going to be skewed cisgendered and heteronormative a bit because that is the makeup of a lot of my friends, and we are particularly femme presenting. So if you don't feel represented by this conversation, I completely understand, and you know that is how the cookie crumbles. So I hope that you can understand, but also please don't misunderstand. I am advocating for the inclusion of all women in this conversation from all backgrounds. But the representation that we have today is not inclusive of that. If that makes sense to you, continue on. That is all I have to say. And before we get into the show, you guys know we have to go through the Bramble. That's the music. Hello. Welcome to the Bramble. Today we are going to pose the question, what is it that you do or that you use to escape? Escapism. It is important in these dire times that we have something that we can latch onto that does not suck. And for me, that thing is K-pop. I mean, K-pop just makes me so happy, guys. It's just so joyful and full of life and color and not the state of the world falling apart, and that is so important to me at this particular time and moment. Oop, I have something in my eye. Gosh. It is super important to me that I have K-pop, and I've been a K-pop fan for maybe, I want to say, I don't know, it's been a while. I've been a fan since like 2008, 2009, and about that time was when my favorite group came out and debuted, and that group is SHINee. And recently, most of the members have finished their mandatory military service. If you're not familiar, in South Korea, if you're a man, you have to do mandatory military service. I'm not entirely sure about all the rules or what age you have or up until when you have to do this or whatever, but you do have to do it. And so all K-pop boy band members have to do this, and it usually can make or break a group whether or not they make it through the period of time where they're doing mandatory military service. But what's interesting about SHINee is that they have gone through a lot as a group, and they're still together. In 2017, one of the members, a vital member of the group, he wrote a lot of the music for the group. His name was Kim Jung-hyun, and he was really important to me. And he committed suicide in 2017 in December. And honestly, as a fan and as a lover of music and as a person who just really respected him because his music was so meaningful to me when I was a kid and all through my, I liked their music since I was in middle school, throughout high school, and to this day, throughout undergraduate. I really lean on SHINee's music because their discography is quite large, to be honest. And a lot of the music that he wrote really spoke to depression and just feelings of loneliness and just all the stuff that, I mean, clearly he was feeling, and it's just unfortunate that he felt the need to take his life. But he was so meaningful. Like, the music that they created was so meaningful, and his existence in the community. He was also pretty outspoken about supporting LGBTQ rights, and I mean, he was a really great person from what I understood. I mean, from my parasocial understanding of him as a fan across the world. But it really meant a lot to me that he was creating music, and to see that he had passed on was, honestly, I had to go through a pretty long grieving process. And it made K-pop in general less of an escape for me, because it was really difficult. But now, like, I've actually grown an appreciation for SHINee and their music, because they have continued to create music, and they have continued to stay as a unit. And honestly, they are one of the biggest groups in K-pop in Korea. You guys may have only heard of BTS, but there are several groups, I mean, but that have sort of come before BTS and sort of done a lot of the things that BTS is known for. I love BTS. So armies better not come for me. I can be considered a casual army. I'm a big fan of BTS, but I definitely think that there are some groups that came before that really sort of paved the way for what BTS is able to do now. And I think SHINee is a part of that group, and they just mean so much to me. And Lee Taemin, which is the youngest member of the group, he released a solo single recently, because he's been not in the military, and he's probably going to go into the military probably later this year or next year. And he will be missed greatly by me, and other Shawols, which is the name of the fan group. Guys, I'm a fangirl for real. And it's so healing to me to sort of tap back. Like, I watch old videos of theirs all the time when I'm feeling sad or when I'm feeling lonely, and it just really uplifts me. It makes me feel happy, and like, I just really appreciate their existence in the world. And their name SHINee is like their sort of loose understanding of this is like them being a light, and I really feel like they have been a light in my life. So I'm very excited to see that Lee Taemin has come out with he's come out with a new single called Two Kids. It's pretty good. Honestly, I like the single from his last album better, but it was like a much sexier dance song, and this one is a much like more somber song. But I really love the concept look, and I hope that I post on YouTube. Like, if you guys are watching on YouTube, I hope that I post pictures of Lee Taemin and other SHINee members, because I love them so much. I'm a big, big, big fan, and I'm fangirling right now. Before I get out of my depth and we completely derail and this whole podcast becomes me talking about how much I love SHINee, I'm just going to keep it moving. But definitely, that is my form of escape. Please leave in the comments or DM me on Instagram what your form of escape is, or what you're using to like refuel your tank and find some sort of completely unrelated from the world today happiness. Like, what is bringing you joy right now? Anyway, that's all for the Bramble, and I will see you after the next segment. I get to talk with some of my closest friends about friendship, and I love talking about friendship. We talk about everything. It's going to be really good, so stick around for that. Bye. So now we can go ahead and get started. I am here joined by 5 of some of my dearest friends from this period of my life, and also from earlier periods of my life. This episode, by the way, guys, is titled The Girls' Room, because I really liked the Amanda Show. And I feel like that's what we're doing here. We're just sort of gonna be here having a chat, having a dialogue with each other on sisterhood, about having female friendships. And just to get us started, can we just go around, and I'm gonna tell you who to introduce yourself, but just tell me who you are, a little bit about yourself, maybe a sentence or two. Jamie, you can start.
Okay, hi, I'm Jamie. I just finished my last year at the University of Michigan, which is where I met Myah. And then I'm starting my master's this fall at the University of Cincinnati. And I'm from Orlando, Florida.
All right, Lenora. Dr. Green Turner.
Well, hi, my name is Lenora Green Turner, Dr. Lenora Green Turner now. And I just got from University of Michigan. I am from Macon, Georgia, way down south.
We love it.
I love it.
I mean, we sometimes hate it, but it's fine. Continue. Sevda, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Sevda. Just graduated from the University of Georgia with a degree in music and computer science. Let's see if I use them. And yeah, I'm from Georgia, and I've known Myah all throughout undergrad, and she's my best friend.
And Kiera.
Hey, I'm Kiera. I met Myah while I was in my undergrad at the University of Georgia. We studied music together. Then probably following that, I got my master's in business administration and now work as an HR professional and have so for a year and a half now. I am from Georgia, and that's me.
And Taria.
All right, well, I'm Taria. I met Myah at the University of Michigan. I just graduated from there with my master's, and I'm working as an admissions coordinator, so.
You guys are the best. I love you all. I just am so happy. I'm mostly just happy to talk to people. You guys know I live alone, so it's kind of like me and my cat against the world. So it's great to see everybody's faces. I wanted to have this conversation because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and particularly one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to is Therapy for Black Girls, which is hosted by, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but Dr. Joy Harden Bradford is I think she is a licensed psychologist. She's also an author, and she does a whole bunch of other things, but she has this podcast where she sort of gives little tidbits, 30 minutes tidbits on different things going on with Black women. And I just think I've had a lot of trouble, like when I was growing up, especially, not so much now, but I had a lot of trouble making connections with women of color and just women in general. And women friendships have always been really difficult to navigate. I've also heard a lot of people say like, oh, I'm not friends with women. I don't have women friends. I don't mess with females, that sort of language. Have you guys also heard this?
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you guys feel like, are you guys invested in female friendships, I should say? Like, do you have more female friends than male friends or otherwise?
For me,
100%.
Anybody can start. Just raise your hand, or I don't know. Just go ahead. Jamie.
For me personally, I didn't have a lot of friends who were girls growing up. And then when I got to college, that's really because I grew up in a very small, conservative, very white area. And so I just wasn't around a lot of people of color in general. Yeah. And because I am biracial, that kind of added another layer, that I was raised by a white mother and not ever really around a lot of Black culture until I got to the University of Michigan and was able, especially in the voice program particularly, which was one of the reasons I went to the University of Michigan. There's so much Black excellence in terms of faculty, but then also students. And I was able to meet some wonderful people, and now my closest friends are all women, right. And women of color, which is amazing. So, yeah.
Sevda, you had something?
Yes. I was going to say 100%, like almost all of my friends are women, and the ones who are, wow, what am I saying? The ones who are men are either queer or I'm dating them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Kiera, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I kind of was in the same wave where when I was younger, I felt like it was easier to be friends with guys, but also I felt like in general, it was harder to have solid, like real friendships. I don't think I had like solid friendships in any ways until I was in college. And when it was mostly women. I think in high school, middle school, I just felt like there was this like, I don't know, this persona that girls had to live up to where you had to be cliquey and had to be like, in some specific social group, or you're just not really in with people. And so I found that to be the case, especially in my high school, because I went to performing arts high school. Performing arts in itself, I think all of us can speak to how that environment can be.
I think every single one of us can speak to, I feel like as women, we are taught to be competing against each other at all times, even if there's nothing to compete for. But especially, I think we can all relate to that just because we've all gone through the music performance circuit. We all know what it's like to be in constant competition. And especially, this particular group of my friends is all women of color. Especially as women of color, when you're the only Black or mixed or Persian person in the room, like you end up being like, if there's another person, you're like, oh, they're gonna be like, oh, there's the other Black person, or there's the other. For Sebda, I know it was like the other Asian person.
Yeah, there was like no other person. I wanted there to be another person, but there was not. So.
Yeah, and I find it, I've always had female friends. I've never really had male friends in my life. I think mostly because when I was an early age, I had a lot of unwanted male attention. I hit puberty early, so I've never really felt comfortable making male friends. But like a lot of my female friends turned out to be very toxic relationships. And a couple of you guys have been with me through some really tumultuous times in my personal walk with friendships.
Let's get into it.
We're not going to be putting any, I wish nothing but the best. I wish nothing but blessings and God's grace on everyone who I've ever met. But there was this one girl who did make life a little bit difficult for me. We were just not compatible. We weren't at the same place, and it was a very difficult and toxic relationship. Have you guys dealt with like a lot of toxic relationships, and can you speak to that? Lenora, you can go ahead.
Well, I would say that my life has been surrounded by women influence. Even though I've had, my mom, my dad with me and everything else. It's kind of both. Like on my father's side, all the boys are there, and on my mother's side, all the girls are there. So it's just a different. I don't know what you say, atmosphere or things, but toxic relationships, there have been a few, and what happens is maybe the person might stop talking to me altogether, and I'm like, what just happened? No, and then I didn't hear any,
When I was like thinking about how I wanted this episode to go, I was like doing a lot of reading on friendships and on platonic relationships, and a lot of women were saying that they had these relationships with women, these friendships with women that would just sort of like disappear or just dissipate. And I know personally, I've never had a friendship just dissipate, and I might just be the person that I am, but I'm like, where are you going? We need to communicate. What's going on? Talk to me. So like, I've never noticed this like idea of people just sort of disappearing, but I have been hearing this. Is this something that anybody else has experienced? Taria, you're nodding.
Yeah, it's still happening. Like, okay. I was always that person that never had like a specific like person or group of people that I was like with all the time. Like I kind of talked to everybody all the time. So I had a lot of guy friends growing up, but later that did not work out because that they didn't want to keep it platonic, so it didn't work out because of that. But like with just my friendships in general, I've found a lot of change come with getting older and moving and, life changes of just, getting jobs and moving away and going to school and such. So people have disappeared, okay? Disappeared. And then because of our, I guess, current situation with the social climate and everything, they have come back and been like, hey girl, but yeah, after you leave, you cut off, that's it.
Yeah, I've had to start drawing a lot of boundaries when it comes to friendships. I mean, I have been through I had 2 major friendships with women, who have massively changed my life because of the level of toxicity that was in those friendships. And so that has caused me to create a lot of boundaries. So I personally, in my head, I feel like I have a really hard time like making friends, especially, as you get older. The older you get, like, master's degrees aren't about making friends. I find it fortunate that I'm still in school. Like, I'm still able to, like, have these, there's a word for this, but you need to have spontaneous connection with people, like regular, consistent meetings with people to build a lot of friendships. And, out in the real world, outside of school, that stuff doesn't really happen. So yeah, that's, I guess, just a thought. But anybody else have, Jamie, what do you have to say?
Yeah, no, just because I'm going into my master's, I've started to experience that. And it's nothing against my class. It's just, we have like a group message that's been going throughout the summer. There are not a lot of people of color. There are 2 of us. And I have noticed a very different dynamic than I'm used to based on the backgrounds that people are coming from. And I was talking to my therapist about it because I was so worried that, about making friends and having like a really close class, and CCM especially, they're really big on community and, being in your little pod with your classmates. And we've just been talking so much about how there's a difference between being a colleague and totally being okay with people in person. You see them at school, you see them at rehearsal, but you don't have to like hang out with them on the weekend. You don't have to, feel like you text them and ask them how their day is. It doesn't need to be like that with everyone. And that is totally fine. And that is better for your own mental health, because you need to reserve your energy for other things. And also reserve your energy for those 1 or 2 people who are going to help you. And you're going to help them in return. But you can't help. I'm definitely a big person who's like tries to reach out to everyone, and you can't do that. You can't spread yourself that thin, especially with all that's going on right now. For Black women, too, it's very difficult. And in this transition of going into grad school, it's okay to be selfish and be like, I need this for me today. And that is to just not really talk to people and to chill at home with my cat. And that's okay. And I think we just live in such a society where we're told that it's not okay. And we come off as being rude or as being, wanting to be isolated from the group, or sometimes thinking I've been told that for me personally, it comes off as like, I think I'm better than people because I don't like to talk to people. But it's the reverse. I don't like to talk to them because I don't want to bother them. I don't want to feel like I'm intervening, or I don't feel like quite comfortable on how to start like that conversation. And so I hate that it has to come off that way, but
it's actually been quite a challenging transition for me because I am like a dog friend. I have a lot of energy and a lot of love to give. And people are rarely like on that level in a master's program. I'm always like, hey guys, what's going on? People are like, I need to practice. I need to study. Girl, I need to go home. Like, no. And so like, it's been actually kind of challenging for me, especially like, particularly in this point of my life. When I was younger, I had a really, really difficult time making friends, not only with women, I mean, women of color specifically, like just in general, but especially Black women, because a lot of my middle school bullies, a lot of my elementary school bullies were other Black women. And so I grew up being very intimidated by women and friendships with women. And it's been kind of difficult for me to like approach people. So now that I'm feeling a little bit more secure in myself, I'm like a lot more outgoing, and I'm like having like a delayed adolescence phase where I'm like, oh my gosh, let's make friends, and everybody's like, girl, I got stuff to do.
That's a mood though. That's such a mood.
I feel like I've had like kind of a similar experience as far as like, you know, middle school bullies being like women of color. Like, yeah, that's been the case for me too. It's also been all men, but that's, yeah. So like, what was my point?
I mean, I was with you.
No, but I think my point was that, like, basically, even though you had that phase of, like, wanting to get to know people after that, like, and wanting to get to know people after and, like, be super friendly and stuff, I still never had that phase. Mm-hmm. I guess I interpreted it as, like, oh, well, I've had terrible experiences in the past, so I'm just gonna, like, continue to do me and be alone. Like, I think that's how I handled it, I guess.
Do you guys have any friends from your past, like past, like childhood friends that you're still connected to now? Because I have a friend, my longest friendship has we're going on 10 years, but it has been challenging as people change and we go our separate ways. It's more of like a family relationship than like a friendship relationship. Do you guys have any of those sort of things? Or if you don't, tell me why you don't. Kiara?
Yeah, so I think my longest standing friendship that I had was a friend. She was Black. And well, actually she was mixed. But I met her, I was a junior in high school, she was a senior, which is wild because we were going to the same high school for all of those years, and then we met when she was kind of on her way out. But she was kind of like the first friend I had and she was like, and somebody I'm not related to that I genuinely loved, genuinely like wanted to spend like exorbitant amounts of time with, I was like low-key enamored with her because, like, you know, her and I were like, personality-wise, we were very different. I think I was a lot more like reserved in a lot of ways, which is funny because you know me now, but I was a lot more reserved in a lot of ways, and she was kind of more out there, a little more eccentric. She kind of, you know, spoke her mind, danced to the beat of her own drum. I was just like, wow, she's so cool. You know, she was very well spoken, like just like how she would because she was the theater major, and she just really knew how to, like, you know, turn that. She had charm, you know. And you know, we went to different schools, of course, but we stayed connected. Like, I think that was probably like a 5-year friendship, which was the longest I'd had. I don't have childhood friendships with anybody I'm still connected with besides my sisters and my brother, who I love dearly. those are real friendships, the A1 day ones. But her and I, you know, it's a thing of, yeah, you grow up, you kind of grow apart in some ways. And I think we started just growing in different directions. And for a long time, us being very different as people was not really, it wasn't really an issue. But there were some things where we differed a little too much, and sometimes she would be upset with me because I was like not as reactive as she wanted me to be, where she was a lot more like, there are certain things she was very like she had very strong opinions about, was very driven about, that for me I was like, that's just not my priority, or that's not my concern. And you know, it kind of became this thing where we were kind of just doing this a lot more. And I kind of started to just pull away. Like, I didn't ghost her, but I noticed that whenever I was spending time with her, which was a lot less because she was going to school out of state, when we were spending time together, I felt like we had less to talk about. There were times where I felt bad, but I was like, there are other things I could be doing right now, like would be going on in the back of my head when we would spend time together. And I was like, this is a real indicator. I was like, I love her, but I feel like we're just going in such different directions, and we just are growing apart. And so we kind of had that conversation. It was like a breakup. And it's been like almost 2 years since the last time we spoke. Mm-hmm. And it was something that kind of just needed to happen. I was nervous because I broke up with her. And I didn't know how she was gonna, like, what her response was gonna be, like how she was gonna take it, like whatever. But it was a mature response. And I was like, I wish you the best of luck in, because it was about to be 2019. It was about to be the new year. And I was like, I wish you the best of luck in the new year. And she was like, I wish you the very same. And that was it. It was a peaceful, amicable separation, which I'm glad for, because she does have a flair for the dramatics and likes to talk about things sometimes. And I'm like, oh, girl, we can't talk for like 4 hours and then still get nowhere. Like, I don't want to do this.
Anybody else have any particular like long-standing relationships or a relationship that did not make it?
My best friend and so basically we met and we became best friends in like 6th grade, and we're still best friends now. But there was another girl who was also part of that friendship, and the other girl, we recently fell off because of this whole social climate thing, which is weird also because she's a woman of color too, so that's another story. But I mean, with the other girl that I've been best friends with since 6th grade, like, we have grown completely apart as far as like where our lives are going, and we basically have nothing in common now. But like, I feel like that gives us more to talk about, and it still hasn't strained our relationship.
I think I can speak for everybody, well, for the older group, because next month I'll be 38, and so I've had time to grow. I've had time to make lots of friends, and I can speak to like what you're going through. You will always remember them. My pocket of African American friends was at University of Michigan the first time when I got my master's, and we're still friends today. And they have become the people that I think of. I'm like, oh, can I call you? we talk for hours, and it's the best relationships ever. And some of them are, my professional buddies as well. And we've been able to, just be. And it's the best feeling ever. And like all my girlfriends, they were in my wedding. So that's how the thing is, I think I'm the one who likes to call. I'm like calling everybody to figure out, are you okay? What's going on? Do you need anything? They're off having babies. They have wonderful careers at the Met and overseas. And I feel sad that I'm not singing with them right now. But sometimes I call them up and I'm like, so how do you do this? And they will give me all the answers because we shared those times together.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I definitely relate to that. And I love having your perspective here in particular, because I really wanted somebody who was a little bit further along in life to also provide because friendships change over time. And I've learned that a lot with my friendship that's like going on 10 years is like the thing that has kept us together, because we have changed in a lot of ways similar to Kiera. Our friendship was a lot similar. Like, I was maybe the more I was a lot more reserved back in the day, but and she was the more outgoing one. And now the roles have sort of flipped, where she's the more introverted one and I'm the more extroverted one. But in that time where things were shifting was a particularly rocky period of time, because it was me sort of like, I was like rocketing through, and I was like, I'm gonna do this and this and this, I'm moving out, I'm doing this, I'm gonna be an independent woman, I'm gonna do da-da-da-da. And she's doing a nursing program, and it takes a lot longer, and so she's still in her degree, and she's still living with her parents, or she was living with her parents. Now she lives like by herself with her friend or whatever. But she, for a while, like, we were just in different places, just like physically, and like certain stuff that I was doing she hadn't done yet, and certain stuff that she was doing I hadn't done, and it just was, we were different people, we were turning into different people, and it was really hard for me personally. I think I probably had the more difficult time because I was like, why don't you call me every day? What's going on? I have a flair for the dramatics. So I think that I definitely put her through a lot of strain, because I was like, I had to learn what her boundaries were, and like what that meant for our friendship and how that friendship could still benefit us both, so that we were both able to grow, even if we are two very different people. Sebda, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I see all of y'all. I got you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just talking back to the previous point on friendships of old. Yeah, I think there's some friends, like throughout my life, especially when I was younger, where I was really self-conscious and not super confident in myself, and that affected the friendships, and so we kind of fell apart or grew apart that way. And some of them I really regret, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had like made more of an effort, but it's also a two-way street, you know, they weren't hitting me up either. But like my closest friends, like some of them, one friend I've had literally since kindergarten and we still talk. So yeah, it's developed more into like kind of a family thing where they're not necessarily the closest people in my life all the time, but if they like ever message me at like 2 a.m. and they're like, I'm going into surgery, I'm like, okay, cool, I'll stay up with you, like let's talk about this, which happened a few days ago. So I don't know, yeah, I like with people who I really care and love, I'll stick around like the whole time and I'll pester them and stay, and so like you and I'll still be around, but
She told me actually when we graduated, I was like,
oh my god,
better not disappear on me. We are dedicated. We are together. We are a couple. We are in this. I don't care about your boyfriend.
That's what you told Sebda.
Our relationship has been so interesting over like 4 years. It's changed a lot of interesting ways, but we have become such good friends. And she was like, oh, well, you know, I don't really connect with friends like after we just like.
Oh my! Why are you bringing this up?
Don't get too attached. Okay.
You come to my show.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, I mean, but she said this, and then like immediately after we graduated, we talk almost every day. To this day, it's been like a year now, and like we do talk almost every day. It sometimes is a lot, like for both of us. But yeah, it's nice to know that, like, you know, when you really care about a person, even if you don't talk for a really long time, even if you don't call each other every day, you will be there for somebody when they need you to be there for you. Jamie or Lenore, I don't remember. I think it was Jamie. Did you have something? No.
Lenore, did you have something you wanted to?
I did. So this is when, you know, that competitive thing you were talking about, where it's a good thing. Because when you see your friends progressing and doing well, you want to do well. And so I've just wanted to say that, yes, we get competitive, and it's either something, are you comparing yourself to them, or are you trying to, I don't know, do better? You progress your life, or you look at them and see what's in you. Are you saying, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at myself for being way down here and they're way up there? But if you look and evaluate, you have to make sure that you're doing well yourself. I mean, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I think in that same vein. Oh, sorry, Myah.
No. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in that same vein, I think I don't know if I've ever understood the catty nature of women when it comes to each other, especially when they consider each other to be friends. Because I mean, I grew up. I'm one of 5 kids, and it's 4 girls and 1 boy. So I've grown up with women, bunch of sisters, and my thing is like when it comes to developing like really strong friendships, especially with women, I personally find it very motivating. To surround myself by women that are, even if they're leagues above me or they're in the direction I'm headed, even if it's not the same profession, the same field of any kind, if it's something where I see them like they're working their ass off, they're soaring, they are committed, they are dedicating that time, like that is extremely motivating to me. So like if I'm not there yet, then it's you know, something to look up to. It's like something, I mean, because there are going to be, of course, like those friendships that are very give and take, where like you may be elevated in one area where maybe they're not, and you know, you're the friend they come to for specific things, and then in other situations you're the one going to them saying, hey, look, you've done this before, you've dealt with this before, how do I, like, what do you think I should do in this situation? And I think like that's what I love. Like, I love seeing my friends, you know, getting those degrees, getting that certification, landing that job, making, you know, securing the bag, all of that stuff. Like, I love to see it. Even women I don't know, I'm just like, oh yes.
Yeah, and you know, the bad relationships, the bad friendships that I've had, the ones that didn't work, were the ones where, like, there wasn't a feeling of equity when it came to emotional, what's the word?
Investment.
Yeah, it's like, great. Yeah, it wasn't equitable. And by that I mean, like, you know, when you give too much, sometimes people, and another person isn't, sometimes that makes people uncomfortable too. Like, where they're like, oh, like, I'm not giving as much, like that, I don't know, like maybe this is too much, like, or maybe they feel like you're coming on too strong, maybe like Kiera's friend or like my friend. And so like that could, or like Kiera felt for her friend, or but like, or and the other way, like if you're giving so much and they're not giving anything back. But like with my friendships that I have now, I feel like they are very like, I have a lot of like quote unquote strong women. Like I need women who are strong in themselves and are dedicated to personal growth, who are compassionate, who are critical thinkers, and who are open-minded at the same time, and who like know or are developing their values and take that very personally. And that's an open sort of definition of what I need in a friend. So I feel like that is inclusive of a lot of different kinds of people. But at the same time, I need friends who, I will always be there for my friends. If you need me at 3 a.m. to drive to a city in the middle of nowhere to pick you up, like I'm that friend.
Yes, you're such a great dad friend.
Like, also, you know, I am very public about like my depression, my anxiety, just various mental health issues that I have that can make me disengage in a lot of really troubling ways. And one thing I really love about my friendships with Sevda and Kiera as we've gone along the way is that whenever I'm in one of those moments, like I know that if I call them, they will be there ready to help me. They will drop what they're doing and they will be able to help me with like, just give me the support that I need to carry on, and vice versa. They know that they can do the same with me. So it's so important that friendship is not just like, oh girl, let's go get drinks. I mean, those friends are important too, like just to have people around who are casual friends for you. But also like a true friendship is one that is like a reciprocal, like emotional investment where it is your support group too. It's a community. I think that's very important for women to have community too, because like men are troublesome. Men are problematic a lot. Not all men, but
You can say it. It's okay.
And they don't understand. And this conversation, I'm probably going to put it at the beginning of the podcast, is that like, I do regret that I don't have, like my conversation around like female friendships is predominantly cisgendered, heteronormative. I'm queer and like my friends are queer, but we're pretty femme presenting, and like, so it comes off as very like cis and heteronormative conversation. So I would like there to be more diversity in my friendship in that way, but I'd keep that space open. And men just don't understand the difficulties of like the pressures that society puts on you to be feminine, or what that even means, especially for like Black women, but women of color in general. Trying to figure out how to navigate the predominantly white idea of what femininity is, that doesn't always necessarily align with our culture. So that's a whole other conversation that I plan to have in the future.
Wait,
I think you should like state it, and we should talk about it.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I mean, if you guys have thoughts on that, please share.
State it. What do you think? What do you think that view is, and then we could like contrast
I think that like
what we've learned or about ourselves
as women who exist outside of whiteness. This sort of idea of the dainty and the submissive sort of view of a woman isn't super applicable to Black women for sure. And Sebda, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for you on what your experience is in regards to this, but like sort of the ideas of womanhood that exist already, especially in America, are specifically developed around how white men want white women to be, which is also oppressive, but at the same time, it just doesn't include Black women, which is like why I feel so strongly about like bringing trans women into the conversation, especially Black trans women, because they like, we both exist outside of the idea of femininity in a very similar way. And so like this idea of being strong and being independent and sort of women being our own support for each other is not necessarily considered a very feminine trait. Not having men around to support you and to provide that for you is not a particularly traditional feminine trait. Do you guys have any comments on that?
Yeah. So I have never fit into, I guess, the mold of being seen as feminine. I've always felt like I haven't been feminine enough, just because of, I guess, I have a strong personality and I'm very independent. I like to be alone, and so I guess I've always felt those types of pressures. And so I've, over the years, tried to change myself to be more ladylike, I guess, in that way. As far as taking crap from people, when they say certain things, or just, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely feel like the societal pressures are there.
Yeah, and even especially as a queer woman personally, I have navigated through presenting more masculine in my youth, and then not.
Oh, I remember.
And then kind of hyper feminizing myself. Right now, I'm in a period of my life where I'm trying to sort of tell myself I don't have to be hyper feminine every time I go out of the door. But that's kind of how I was taught to present, because otherwise my mom was like, oh, you look like a boy, you're not fitting, you're not presentable. And especially our mothers do this to us. What is going on? We need to love our mothers more, because they whatever they went through, they really put it on us, this whole idea of what it means to be presentable and respectable in public. I mean, Sebda, you did a complete physical 180 over the last few years.
That's fair. Yeah, I think touching on your point where we need to love our mothers also need to love themselves, and that's something I think a lot of moms just give off all of the insecurities that they have unknowingly to their daughters. And so that's something that I've had to actively work on for myself, because I've just heard so many things that my mom has said about my appearance over the years. Yeah, I think it's a whole nother thing when you're talking about queerness with femininity too. I was pretty androgynous appearing, I guess, my first couple years at college, and I had a lot of, it was a weird time. Definitely feels there are a lot of differences in how people treat you when you seem more masculine or androgynous, and queer, visibly. So yeah, I don't know. But now I'm very femme presenting, I think. So that's been an interesting kind of switch. Yeah.
Jamie, did you have something, or were you just nodding?
Oh no, I'm just kind of nodding in agreement. But yeah, really echoing what everyone said about presenting myself very feminine. I have struggled with that being a big woman, because I feel we get that even more, because it's oh, you're fat, so that's a negative, so you need to counteract that, and your makeup needs to be on point, and your nails need to be done, and your hair needs to look good, and you need to have a full outfit on every time you leave the house.
Period.
Whereas other people, you know, don't get that kind of judgment. I'm looked at so differently if I just decide to wear like sweatpants and a sweatshirt out of the house as compared to so many people. It's a big thing at Michigan with the undergrads of wearing those oversized, you know, sweatshirts down to their knees and the little Ugg boots, you know, and if I dress like that, no, I wouldn't. I just literally would not get respect from anyone, and it's really unfortunate that already as fat women and just fat people in general, like that just comes with a line of disrespect, which don't even get me started. I mean, that's a loophole.
And also adding darker skin on top of that and shorter hair, girl, I was already counted out. Like,
yeah, and what's so frustrating is a lot of these stereotypes, these boxes, and these sort of tropes are perpetuated in female circles. Like the sort of situations that I've been in where people talk about, like, say that something that a fat woman is wearing, a woman who is fat, and then somebody who a skinnier woman is wearing, like, and it's the same thing. I saw this thread on Twitter the other day that was like, skinny women put on whatever and walk out the house, and that's fashion. Yeah, but it's not that way with fat. So we perpetuate these things within our own circle, and by we, I mean like women in general. And I think it's sort of this idea that like it's a similar sort of situation with respectability politics. It's this idea of what is presentable, and oh no, they're outside of our idea of what femininity is, or this idea of that we've been taught about what femininity is, and we need to fix that.
This kind of ties back into the whole like Black women like being some of the people that have bullied us in the past, particularly you and I, Myah. Like I literally remember it was my birthday in school, and I decided that I was going to dress up and wear makeup, and I had gotten my hair done and everything, and they walked by me and told me I looked like I was in drag. And like basically, like, even when I have been feminine, it's always been like,
it's never good enough.
It's yeah.
It is really toxic. It is so toxic. And you know, I was explaining to my dad recently, because my dad perpetuates some toxic masculinity ideology from time to time, and I know he's probably watching this. I love you very much. But there have been a few times in my life where I've had to have a little conversation with him about how things are. And when I moved to Michigan, one night I was coming back from school, and you know, when you're in music, like late nights are common. So I was coming back around like 10 p.m. and I was pulling into the parking lot in front of my apartment complex. And there was this truck I didn't recognize that with all the doors open, and it was like 4 men in the truck. And it was right in front of my apartment door. And I was on the phone with Sevda actually, and I was like, ooh, it's nighttime. I'm alone. I just want to get into my apartment, but they're in front of the walkway to my apartment. So I was like, ugh, already I'm like not feeling it, because I know as soon as I get out of the car, or if I make eye contact, or if I in any way acknowledge that they're existing in that space, that they're going to try and speak to me, and whatever that may entail, because that happens to me every day. And so I'm on the phone with my friend, and then this guy comes around and he taps on the glass, and he's like,
oh, I remember
come
that.
Hey, roll down your window, like let me in, and I was like terrified. I really hate, this happens to me so much that like it is truly triggering, and I was like, I just want this to be over. And this was very soon after, at my dad's house over Christmas, there was a neighbor of my father's who was there, who inappropriately touched my body and definitely sexually assaulted me. And it was really a painful time, like around January-ish is when this all was, like December 23rd-ish was when that happened. And then like I came back to school and then this happened with this car and these men outside. And so I was in a very vulnerable space. And so I was telling my dad the next day, I was like, oh my gosh, this happened. I really hate it when men do this. This is so uncomfortable. This is so, like, it makes me feel very unsafe. And my dad was like, I mean, they were probably just trying to do. I was like, no. I was like, no. Why do you feel the need to cape for the sexual
stranger over your child?
Like, I am your child. So it's been really difficult for me in general, just moving through the world. Like these sorts of things that I had to explain to my dad that the reason why this is a big deal is because this happens multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day for the last for the last majority of my life. Like the majority of my life has, as a woman walking through the world, has been to be objectified at random in the middle of the night by strangers, and to be made to feel unsafe even within my own home, which is my father's home. Like even those sorts of situations can sometimes be places where they are unsafe. So as women, I had to teach my father, which was really a strange experience, that as women, like you should never take the side of the man in the story. It's
100%.
Don't do it. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all experienced some sort of awful thing and you don't have to explain that to me in this space. But like, it's just, it gets a little bit exhausting being a woman, having all of these pressures put on you about how you're supposed to present, how and I noticed, especially ever since I started like being more feminine, and like I used to wear beanies all the time. My mom thought it's made me look like a boy, so I started wearing scarves, and now people are like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. Like people have really changed the way that they treat me ever since I started presenting this way. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, it does make life a little bit more comfortable for me. I am a very like traditional, I fit the mold now. I fit the mold of what like a Black woman should look like. And therefore I move through the world a lot easier than some of my peers, but it does not make me blind. And it makes me very angry that like we can't all move together. And that's why I find it so important that the women around me are diverse, are like all those things I listed before, because it creates, not only does it grow me, but we all grow together. We can all move up together. And that's what I want. And I feel like I can't understand people who are like, I also don't like the terminology of saying females. Like,
yeah.
I don't like it when people like, I don't mess with females.
I don't mess with these females. First of all, do I say males?
Are you not?
These males over here, they acting a straight like you never hear anybody say that. Like it truly, like I sort of understand it, but still quite just doesn't click for me how pretty much any woman you're gonna meet is going to have some story of some varying level and degree of being uncomfortable, you know, some form of sexual assault, some sort of something where they are made to be physically uncomfortable and like in those situations. Like I honestly don't know a single woman in my life that hasn't experienced something to that degree. And for those kind of things to be such a just like an expected part of womanhood and you know, being even when you haven't even reached womanhood yet, for that to be something that's so unfortunately common, it blows my mind when women are pitted against women and are also those people that are sympathizers with the accused or will try to justify, well, this, you know, if this, maybe if you didn't do this, or maybe if that hadn't happened, this wouldn't. It's crazy because you could be doing nothing. And it's completely unwarranted. It's completely uncalled for. Like you're minding your own business in your own little bubble, and someone comes to intrude. And then when you open up about it, people are completely just in defense mode. And it just blows my mind. I was like, as females,
yeah, and
I say that in the normal way.
And
it just doesn't make sense.
And we're about to wrap this up, guys, but this has been a really great conversation. But just as a final thought, going back a little bit to talking about our moms and our mothers, it's a lot of the stuff that we experience, they also experience. And I the way that I was raised, though, you know, so much of that, like, victim blaming and shaming, I was taught to shame. I was taught to be ashamed of, like, my body. I was taught to be ashamed of, like, the way that I talk, the way that I dress, the way, everything. And to be like, okay, my mom has always told me, and she still to this day tells me this, and honestly, I mean, it's true, but it is unfortunate. She's like, well, don't look men in the eye. Like, don't look men in the eye ever on the street. Girl, it's a thing, apparently.
But have to be that way.
I was like, I had to tell her, though, instead of, she says this now as like a precaution, but she used to say it more as like this is why that happened. Like, what were you wearing? We guys have all heard these sorts of things, but my mom has specifically been like, well, did you look him in the eye? Like, I'm like, I should be able to walk around and make eye contact with human beings without.
No.
So you don't have to make eye contact to be approached at all. All they got to do is clock you, and then they start.
Someone can bail at you across the street.
Like, I've gotten all kinds of, like, I'm minding my own business. Somebody's yelling at me across the parking lot in a gas station. I've had terrible incidents on, like, public transport. Like, it's like, there's really nothing you can do besides walk around with a bag over your head and, like, a potato sack for clothing. Like, for people to be like, that's odd, I'll stay away from that. Like, that's, if you want to have zero interaction, don't leave your house.
Which is exactly why these spaces are so vital to the emotional health of us all. Like, I could not be the person I am today if it weren't for Sevda or Kiera, and honestly for Lenora and Jamie and Taria. Only recently have we started developing our relationship, but I really respect you all. And that is the reason that I asked you to be here with me, because I knew that you would have something valuable to say. Oh, my video is freezing. I knew that you guys would have something valuable to contribute, because I know, I don't know you, but I know you. Like, I love you. And I really appreciate you all for being here on this episode of Thorn and Thistle. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been great. I'm probably going to do this again. And I don't know if you guys are going to be available, or whoever is on the list. You guys know that I cast a little bit of a net of my friends. It is really nice to just talk to other women about other women in a very platonic sense. I mean, if you know me in any way, I hope that you know that platonic relationships, platonic friendships are honestly close to the most important friendships in my life personally, because they're the people that I see when I'm down. You guys are the people that I talk to when I need somebody to talk to. Sometimes more than my family. And so it's just so important to me that I am surrounded by such beautiful, wonderful, verbose, intelligent, articulate women. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. And that's gonna be it. And then, yeah.
Flowers to the people. Yeah. Flowers to the people. Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome to the last segment of the show. This is Flowers to the People, the segment of the show where I just give somebody love because I want to. Basically, I shout out whoever I want, and I give them their flowers while they're still alive. Sometimes when they're not alive, like last time, or the episode where I did John Lewis. But whatever, I do whatever I want. This is my show. So today we are showering bouquets of flowers over the women who have made me who I am in my life. The friends that I have made along the way, my best friends, since I have a friend that I've been friends with almost 10 years now from high school. I love you, Tina. Sevda, who is my best friend. All of the friends that were here. Kiera, Dr. Lenora Green Turner, Jamie, who else? Taria. All of you guys are so important to me and mean so much to me, and all the people who couldn't be in this episode but you may see in a future episode, Mike Tree and Emily and all the people that I've called on, all the people who are my support system in Georgia, where I'm from, and here in Michigan, where I have come. And it's just like so important that I am surrounded by beautiful, strong women of all different backgrounds, of all different sizes and shapes, of all different sexualities and orientations and identities, and it's just so beautiful. I love my family. I'm surrounded by beautiful women in my family, my cousin Sarah and my aunt Kathy, Aunt Gretchen, and my mom. I love you guys also, and it is just so important to me that I have been raised around beautiful, strong, amazing women, phenomenal women, and I have such beautiful, strong, amazing, phenomenal women surrounding me to this day, and I want to continue to build those relationships with the people that you saw in this podcast episode if you're watching on YouTube, or the people that you heard if you're listening on another platform, and I want to continue that with everybody else. So that is it for Flowers to the People. You can find me everywhere that you can find me at my_OH_MYAH. That's Myah Myah at Instagram. You can find me at Myah Rose _TNT pod at Twitter. And you can also just hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you have any toxic friendships that you want to get off of your chest, or if you have any beautiful friendships that you want to shout out in the comments. Please let me know. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see on the show. And that is all for me. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're not on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review and rating, and let me know if you want to see anything more from me in the future. On other platforms, just send me a follow. Hit me up on Instagram. I'm very friendly. And that's all for today. Thanks, guys. Bye.